Yo, so I'm just checking in. I'm gonna do Bible studies and just chillax with my Friday night because I got nothing else to do really. I mean, I might go out actually, but if I don't, I'm gonna do that. But I did do a few. I did episode 1 of the Daniel Bible study. So this message is actually for Pastor Minima. I don't mean to outdork you, but. You just said one thing that I think might be factually inaccurate because you're trying to be a stickler for the truth wherever it lies. Right now in Ezekiel chapter 14, verse 14, about 36:30 into your episode 1 of your Daniel classes there, you point out that he uses the word Daniel. And so Ezekiel, who was a contemporary of Daniel, and they were both captives, but Ezekiel was older. He was a peer of Jeremiah, who was also older. He was like Jeremiah's age, but his counterpart over in Babylon. So even though they both get carted off, they're even part of the first round of exiles back in like 602 or whatever. Jaheim gets screwed over, and then like 70 years later, verbatim, is when Daniel figures out. But then, at any rate, so this Daniel in 14, Ezekiel, he's not talking about that day. He would have been a youth. He certainly would. No one would have known who he was. By no means, because you can chart his trajectory with Nebuchadnezzar over time. So that did not mean Daniel. In Hebrew, it's Danel, Dan-E-L, not Daniel. So it's different because Danel is some mythological Canaanite from the Leviathan and the bosses and the balls and the da-da-da-da's. But it's strange because I believe I've heard it, someone else pointed that out. I watched some other thing about Daniel once, no really. And they pointed out that they believe that actually Father God did mean Daniel, because they had all heard of this Canaanite lore and this Leviathan thing. And if you recall in Deuteronomy chapter 9, he says, don't think you're the chosen one. Moses tells them, don't think you're these chosen ones because you're so great. God is telling me to tell you that actually it's just that the Canaanites over there are so horribly bad that you're less bad. But he did want to kill you all and start over with me. But I reminded him of the Abraham thing, and then he relented. That's Deuteronomy 9, but there's some Canaanite crap. Dan-el, D-A-N-E-L. He meant Dan-el. It would not have been possible that he would have had the notoriety whatsoever. I mean, people aren't listening to him. Even as you point out, in his 80s, he's getting pushed into a lion's pit. When he ran everything, he was like Joseph was to Pharaoh back in Genesis, that Joseph, but to Nebuchadnezzar. So there's parallels there somehow, but he meant Danel. You can look at it, some crazy mythological, and the reason being, he does not list one Jewish person. He lists I believe he lists Abraham, Noah, and Danel. He could have listed Moses, Noah, and Danel. So I could be incorrect, but I think the logic there is that he's saying even if there's some Job, I think it was Job actually, he was an Edomite. That whether it's Job or Noah or this Danel, even if they were around, or even Moses, well, it would not matter. They would only deliver themselves. It's sort of like the lot from. So I just wanted to point out my little nerd, because I've looked into it. I did a couple episodes on the bookie Daniel too. But real unofficial, I am not a teacher. I do go out of my way to say, but even though in the context of no, you have to be responsible with it, and you are, sir. But you're my pastor my whole life. I just sort of, I don't even live in Jersey anymore. And even when I did, I didn't really go too much at some point, but it's not because I didn't enjoy hearing your sermons, sir. That's not really it. All right. Well, at any rate, Daniel, I believe that's my one correction I would add to your first video lesson there. I know it's a very small thing because you're jumping around. You go from second Chronicles to but that's what's fun about Daniel, because it's crazy. And it's still relevant now because in the one sense, that rock that gets thrown from the chapter 2 vision, that already happened. Jesus did that 2,000 years, But then in another sense, I don't know, like nothing's not at some point there's like a resolution to like the chapter 7 stuff. Like that stuff still, so somehow that like man, Daniel's crazy. That's all. It's all in the Bible is crazy in general. I mean, it's nuts. I agree with you. If you actually understand it in context of history, but on that one point, I believe in Ezekiel 14:14, chapter 14, he was talking about Daniel, because in Hebrew it says Daniel, not Daniel. So I'm just saying, I believe he could have meant Daniel, but no, he would have been talking about some other Daniel. It would have not been possible at that time that he would have had the notoriety, because you can track from Ezekiel, you got to get a few more chapters before his spouse dies, his mouth opens, and like Jerusalem even totally officially falls. And then the rest get carted off, and then it's like 50 or 60 more years from there. Anyway, I don't know, I'm pretty sure, but I mean, even if you want to agree to disagree, let's do that. I don't hate you, Pastor Minimus. All right, just for the record, I'm a dork, but all right.